how to explain how he stares at you, because he's just this tall, black silhouette. It's staring right at you.
It's trying to rationalize the irrational.
Welcome, Kyle J. Macias. Kyle, I saw the HATMAN documentary, and I went through a roller coaster of emotions during the whole situation. I laughed, and then I felt horrified, but then I felt justified, especially near the end. I felt like, wow, this is really going to expose all of these nocturnal terrors and even daytime terrors for some to a whole new audience, and so many people who have had it happen to them are going to be comforted and really counseled about what's going on with them. And I really felt like it was a very important film. I want to thank you as a survivor of these horrible, traumatic events for putting us on film and for giving us a microphone and for caring about this phenomenon and understanding that it's more than what we might think it is. It's nothing simple. So everybody, welcome Kyle. How are you today, Kyle? What's going on with you?
Doing very good. I'm very flattered. That's exactly what I set out to do for the whole project. Comfort people in the fact that they're not alone, but also for people who kind of maybe mock those victims, that at least they get an idea of what those people are going through. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I got chills so much. The sound quality of the film is A+. I mean, really, it's big Hollywood sound as far as I'm concerned. It raised chills on my skin, and it put me back in my bed when I was having experiences. It really took me back there. The clicks and the bass line. How did you do that? You're a wizard. What happened with the sound?
The sound, that was a lot of it. I manipulated different type of sounds. So some sounds were downloaded for free and royalty-free offline, and then I manipulated those sounds to make them sound a little more inhuman or a little bit off to get the audience, or give the audience a feeling of, creepiness and like something's off maybe in the room with you as you're watching it.
It's like, how does he know? How does he know to do that, that is so spot on, that it takes you right back? Like a trauma, you'll get a trigger. And this whole film is a trigger.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah, and I showed the film to my family, and they said the same thing. They said some parts were pretty potent, like spiritually, if that makes sense, or interdimensionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did tweet this out, that you had put the HATMAN in a body bag and sent him home to us so that we could see. It was like a dissection, and almost also like an FBI profile on this sucker. How do you feel about that whole, I know you did a lot of research, you've had your own experiences, obviously, especially by now having done the film. How did you feel about that first inkling of that everyone gets of, this is not for pretend, this is real?
That's a very interesting question. I didn't go in blind, if that makes sense. I didn't go in like, oh, I wonder what this is. I really did research before, and I knew I was getting into some dark territory regarding like what you call the human subconscious mind or collective mind, and I knew that it goes into the darker realms of different dimensions as well. But I first got the inkling to do it when my own family, they said they've seen the HATMAN. And that was years ago, and I was like, man, this has really never been looked into before or even documented like in a film. There's been some YouTube videos, but never something documented in its entirety of what it could be or people's stories or anything like that. But just on the HATMAN itself was something that I think should have been explored.
I agree, and I really, when you came to interview me, I felt your very palpable emotional attachment to this project, and that made me believe in the project that much more. So I understand your attachment, and it was because your family had had some experiences. And are there any legends or stories that you've heard from the families that you did interview and your own family? Anything that pointed backwards to the past, a time of history, a time before this?
There seemed to be a commonality of generational curses connected to the HATMAN. So if someone was abused, either sexually or just physically, there was a connection with seeing the HATMAN with that. Also, too, historically, it seems to go back maybe in the early 1900s, maybe. As long as that hat has been around, it has been around. I should say the form it takes as the HATMAN has been around since that fashion has been around. But the entity is clearly, the witnesses are adamant that it's been existed before that. They say it feels ancient when they see it.
So the cinematography, I found that you used angles and lighting along with the sound to create what is a figure made of pure black, of pure shadow. One of the people that you interviewed said it looked like it was made of shadow, and that just sent chills all through my body. So how did you get this effect? Like, how did you even go about that? Because these technical things, I think, were actually spiritually guided into you as a visionary.
Oh yeah, I completely agree because yeah, it took time. I just didn't want to put someone in a morph suit and then just black out the background or just make a dark room. I knew that might come off a little strange, or like the human eye will know what that is. So there was a lot of trial and error to based off people's accounts and what they saw to create a recreation of what they saw. So basically, the whole time I was constantly, every little detail, the way the brim was moved, the angle he was standing, the height, the clothes he was wearing, every little detail, the cuffs, I made sure that was added into the HATMAN's wardrobe, if that made sense, the actor's wardrobe, so that way he could portray it. Also, too, what I did also is I told the actor to have the intention of the HATMAN as well.
Oh my goodness.
So I told him, I said, I want you, when you're looking at the eyewitnesses or the camera, I want you to be hating them as if you're going to kill them and take them to hell, and maybe suck their consciousness out of their body at the same time. I was giving them all these different directions so that kind of intention comes off too, not just him standing there in black, you know? That's regarding the black HATMAN shadow. Because I know later on in the film we talk about the grinning man aspect of it. But regarding for the shadow people type HATMAN, that one was created with different type of techniques. So he wasn't just in a morph suit. He was in other layers.
And what is the name of that actor?
The shadow HATMAN, that is Eric Tibetmo. I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, he's really cool. He's also a filmmaker as well.
Well, I want to congratulate him on his performance and you for giving him the direction, because it was real emotion. I could feel it even though it was just a blank canvas, you know, the HATMAN. It was amazing. I also want to talk about the reality of the film came off so palpable, again, I have to say that, because you mixed professional production with YouTube-style talking heads, and you made their stories come to life in front of us. And I felt like I was being confided in by like a close friend that was telling me a secret personally. So the way you captured the stories, the way you encapsulated the stories into basically our best friend telling us a secret. How did you come across that intimacy?
I love that you caught on to that. I purposely, when you make a documentary, because I made only one other documentary in high school, I noticed that when you interview people, you don't just want to interview people who have had the same experience of the topic that you're making the documentary about, but you kind of want to cast the people as well. So I was really looking for people who were, like what you just said, they talk to you like they're your best friend. Their voices are almost hypnotizing, or, yeah, like they're confiding in you. I purposely casted everyone in the film a certain type of aesthetic I was looking for eyewitnesses. Because some people were genuine eyewitnesses, but they would just say, oh yeah, he was in the corner and I was scared. And they would stop there. While other people, they went into detail and they went into more of their backstory of what they think he is and their own personal life experiences. So I had to really dive deep with the person too, not just the encounter, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. You were part counselor during this entire filming process. I've even seen you on Facebook counseling people who have experienced this and just, really bringing your heart to the project. And I think a lot of people can't say that about their own films.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to help because I know that it could be a scary experience because I haven't really had sleep paralysis like other people, but I've had ghostly experiences that are like, 11 out of 10 fear factor, I know how scary it could be.
Oh, yes, definitely. When did you first want to be a filmmaker? When did that come upon your path?
Actually, I remember this clearly. It was first grade for me. It was 2001. For some reason, ever since, oh my gosh, the 90s, I just wanted to be an actor. But in 2001, my teacher passed out a paper on a director called Steven Spielberg. And he was playing with trains, and but he used to film trains when he was starting out, when he was a kid. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Someone can make their living filming toy trains. That's what I thought as a kid. And I'm like, that's what I want to do is be a director then. And then from there it grew to something bigger and bigger and bigger to the point of, making a documentary. And then who knows what happens next. But that's what triggered my interest.
So this is your first professional, let's say, documentary. And I want to know how you picked this. We went a little bit over that there were experiences with your family, but what really linchpinned this for you, just the whole story of why the HATMAN as your first professional documentary.
I got really deep into research on the Nephilim, fallen angels, the possible connection to aliens, interdimensional beings, and then I came across shadow people, inevitably it seems. I've heard of a hatted figure before, but when I found out that it was a worldwide phenomena, that really, not really disturbed me, it more fascinated me, but it disturbed the people around me, because my family, they've seen the HATMAN. And that's what really triggered it, is when I was looking up this is a long time ago, I was looking up different documentaries, and there was there was like a UK documentary on sleep paralysis, and another one on
I love the UK one. That was really good.
Yeah, that one's freaky, right? That one's very...
and it's hours and hours long.
Yeah. So you really get lost in it right away. But I noticed no one really documented just the HATMAN because people say that it has a totally different vibe of its own,
I want to be honest with you about the HATMAN. I didn't know if people were being honest. I was like, maybe they're just seeing a shadow and they think it's a hat. Because all I'd ever seen was the Shadow Man, and I would never have believed it if I didn't see the HATMAN myself.
Wow, that's what a lot of people say, actually. That's what other witnesses say. Another guy I interviewed named Steve Giles, he's also on YouTube. He just put out a review for my film, and he said, if this didn't happen to me, he said exactly your words, if this didn't happen to me, he said, I would think people are lying or it's fake. Mm-hmm. And then I showed the film to my family, and my sister said that too. She's all like, when I first heard the word the phrase the HATMAN, it sounds silly and stupid. But when I watched the movie, now it completely freaks me out. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm wondering because you are obviously your family's child, and here you are, and you're coming from a background of spiritual people who know even older spiritualities from the past, your grandparents and their grandparents. So you're coming more from a tribal feel, and there's more folk tales, and there's more stories from the past. So what about your family as far as that kind of what we call folk tales about the HATMAN?
There does seem to be a connection with my mom's side that's kind of, I guess you could say, prophetic. Some people would say psychic or mediumship, whatever, like what you have. Yeah. And I think that played into them seeing the HATMAN. I did find a connection where it seemed as if this interdimensional entity, for lack of a better term, could turn on and off the pineal gland. Oh,
wow. Now you just said a mouthful, mister.
Yeah, and it seems as if if you're inclined to be psychic or open to the other dimensions, it seems that he could turn it on and off to show himself. Actually, I think he does that probably to everybody. That's one of my theories. If I'm going a little off topic, but
I love that theory because we know there's electricity and magnetics involved in it. I mean, we feel the vibrations. Mm-hmm. And I have my back. I have a slip disc in my back, so I actually have nerve damage that I feel. And the sleep paralysis, the electricity of sleep paralysis feels a lot like nerve damage.
Oh, gosh. That's horrible. Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry for that.
But it's, as more of a scientific mind, just looking at the facts, I think it's interesting that the vibrations equal electricity, and maybe he could short out the pineal gland in other ways. Because when I astral projected out of my body during an attack, the shadow man was no longer there. And everybody kind of knows that. That's it's a story that a lot of people tell. Once you turn on a light or you jump out of your body, it's no longer there, which means, that's a whole other mystery.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think it's really good to have theories and go deeper into a subject than just give what you think is true about it, like what you're saying, because I notice a lot of people online, they kind of just spew out garbage. They're not really, you have to do the field work. That's what I try to do with this film, is I try to do the field work and go out there and interview people and not just read a couple of theories online. Do you know what I mean? It seems
definitely.
Like people they just conform to, no, I think sometimes it's fear. It's just fear. They don't want it to be something more dark than what they think it might be. They rather think it's fake, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw you got your boots on, you got down in the dirt, and you wrestled with the HATMAN for this whole film. So you're definitely not dabbling in this topic at all. In fact, I see you as an expert on this topic for sure. And you're right, the internet, people just want to get that quick fix of, it's a medical condition, there's no problem here, we just pop a pill kind of society that we live in. And it is fear. And what could be more fearful, especially someone who's already experienced this and then made up their mind that they are crazy or told themselves a false narrative, a terrible story, to just put it behind them, and not to look at it. And I find, and I know as a psychic in the future, we're not going to be able to avoid these topics for much longer. They're just easing out of every pore of our society, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think these subjects are so deep that, I'm pretty sure your audience would understand. I think your audience would. It does seem that there is a push. You could call it the Matrix or simulation, or maybe from the subconscious mind, what we were talking about the other day or earlier, that these things are being exposed to get to the next level of, I guess you would say, consciousness, or the next level of maybe godhood or something. It does seem that we need to know about evil, like what you said first, to get to the next level. But I think that the HATMAN in particular is a very high-ranking entity, and I think that by that one being exposed, it kind of pushes the door to so many other topics.
And I do see you as an expert on these topics. So you have used the word evil, and you used the word evil even on the poster for the documentary. And I want to, do you think they're fallen angels? Where are you going with this? Where have you come to? And you can take as long as you like to describe this. How did you come to any kind of deeper questioning? You started at the Holy Bible. You started at the fallen angels and the Watchers. And how did that evolve for you?
Yeah, for some reason I was always interested in the possible connection between our demons aliens or aliens demons.
I agree, because sleep paralysis always came up, like when you were listening to Art Bell, sleep paralysis always came up around alien abduction.
Yes. And I noticed when I researched alien abduction that a lot of those old-timer or older researchers, they were saying that what people are reporting now as shadow people and sleep paralysis, they were reported back in the day as being part of UFO abduction or alien abduction, alien activity. And I thought that was interesting that it seems like it's only like one big phenomena, but it's just that people are calling it different names. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a demon, interdimensional, alien. To me, I think it's the same thing. Fallen angel, interdimensional, aliens, same thing. There are some semantics to it that I've come across in my research.
And fashion, apparently.
Yeah, and fashion. Definitely fashion. But to me, I think it's more of the... Hello?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh, you came... the audio shorted out for a second. Just kidding. What was I saying? Oh, it's just the form. I think like fashion, it's just the form that it chooses to take.
Well,
Go ahead.
In the Buddhist tradition, we're taught that form isn't actual. So if we can take the form off of, and all the labels off of evil, we just have evil, and it's just a force. And that's what I teach often, is that evil is just a force, and you can feel it. And look past the cover of the book. And I even gave the shadow a chance. Like, maybe it's nice, and I just don't know it. Maybe it's from another planet, and I just don't know it. I gave it every chance in the world. But the way it feels, it's like you understand when you're about to get eaten by a tiger. It is total instinct, and there's no way the logical mind can override that instinct. It's fight, flight, right there. Boom.
Yeah, I completely agree. What the Buddhists are talking about is just the baseline consciousness, right, of what it really is.
Well, sure.
What do you think?
Well, the Buddhists get complicated, and as far as newbies begin, as far as people who are just listening to this, I think it's the easiest thing just to say there's a good force of love and there's a bad force we call evil, and every day in every way we're choosing between them. And I think that's just so simple and a great lesson. But if we get into the Buddhism, then we understand that a lot of these creatures are from what we call the bardo. They're hungry ghosts. They are beings without light. And this is a great point to bring up Rosemary, who was also in the film. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she was so strong in the film, and she was an integral part to helping us understand the HATMAN phenomenon. And when you posted that exclusive clip from the film of Rosemary, I actually saved what you said about her because I thought it was so beautiful. And I want to share it right here real quick. This is Kyle in his post. Rosemary Ellen Guiley played a huge part in this documentary. She appears several times throughout the film on the subject of shadow people and much more. She will be missed. Rest in peace, Rosemary. She was a brilliant person and authored over 60 books on the paranormal. I am eternally grateful for her mentoring me in this process and being a part of the film. And I bow my head in prayer pose and send love and energy to her and her family. So thank you for writing that for her and putting a dedication at the end of the film.
Yeah, I think it was called for because I was hoping that she would see it. It's just that, my condolences to the family, but I'm really glad that she gave me a chance because she so happened to be in town right when I came across, well, I've heard of her before, but I came across her work again, and I was like, wait, how come I wasn't thinking about interviewing Rosemary for the Shadow People? And then I looked her up, and she so happened to be in town, and we got the interview, and I was actually shocked that she agreed to do the interview because she was busy doing some paranormal con stuff, and yeah, I was very glad that she's part of the film.
She is really a bright light in the film. I'm so glad that synchronicity happened. And as a psychic, I know she's seen the film.
Oh, interesting.
We send all books and films to heaven. Yeah, actually, there's a book. There's a Jewish Mother in Shangri-La, is what it's called. And the son of the mother was a Buddhist monk, and he said, Mom, we've all read your books, before she even began writing.
I've heard of stuff like that before.
So it's just there's a positive side to all of this stuff too. There's a loving side and it gets good.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But we're not focused on that right now. So, okay, let's get into the close a little bit. I had a little joke I tweeted out today. If the Hat Man is in a hat and a coat, does that mean the Shadow Man is naked? I mean, really, we have to think because we understand as humans, clothing is not a necessary thing to have for survival. Mm-hmm. So to have this silhouette with a hat, and a lot of people say a trench coat or a cloak, is telling us that there's something unreal happening here. Like there's a trick, like a trickster, like a way to go. You know, it feels tricky to me. I was moved by the way that you pointed out how the shadows seemed like spies and how Rosemary called them bedroom invasions, and that's something we've heard on Art Bell's Coast to Coast many times. And that you brought up the creeper aspect of the HATMAN, and that led us into Men in Black, who are legendary for showing up after an alien abduction. And you caught that creepy vibe so well in the film, because I've never really thought of him as watching me, because it always felt like an attack. Watching seems like it's just chill and just waiting. But that's never the way it seemed to me. It was always an attack, even if it was standing still. So that spooky specter, I'm going to watch you in a spying aspect. How did you tap into that, and where did that come from?
Well, I always kind of liked, well, no, I still do. I always liked The Exorcist, The Shining, and I always felt like when I watched those movies, there was a different kind of essence or vibration coming off them. And your audience will understand this, because I know if I talk on different radio stations or podcasts, they might not understand this.
Yeah, you can use the weirdy words here.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah. Basically, I would kind of like absorb that in the purest form I can, and then funnel that through my own talents of really getting under people's skin, but really getting to the core of fear, to really kind of get into the person's soul, I guess, while they're watching it. That's what I really tried to do.
So you took in the essence yourself. That's what an alchemist does, what a hermetic person does. You took in the essence of the creep.
More like, I would say more like the Godhead, how he perceives it and how he wants it projected out there for people to see the truth.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's like God's will.
That. Yeah, there you go. Instead of like absorbing the HATMAN's essence, which would probably turn me into a murderer or something.
I was going to ask about that if you had some mood swings.
There's been a lot of attacks that you could consider, you could say are mood swings, but I would say they're more spiritual, interdimensional attacks that have happened before, during, and now going to be after the film.
Man. Well, there's no doubt that it's real, because when you get into it, it haunts you. And that's one of the weirdest things, because we live in this very provincial reality, if you will, as far as metaphysics is concerned. If you say something strange like vibration, they call you woo-woo. And they just, obviously put you down on Occam's razor and say, you're just wrong, kid. And we are living beyond that world. Obviously, people like you who are into the deeper mysteries, and we could even say conspiracy theorists in general, or people who do research, are looking for something more than just what they can find in their newspapers in the morning, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, but you wanted to talk about the look, right, of why he wears the hat or the coat?
Yes, please.
It's mentioned in the film, but there was one guy I interviewed that didn't make the film. He used to be on the dark side of the occult, you would say, but really like into sacrifice and sending demons to people, basically.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was definitely a magician and what's the word?
Satanist.
Sorcerer. There you
okay.
Go. Satanist too. Yeah. But he, I interviewed him on the phone, and actually he's a Christian now, and he goes out doing evangelism and stuff. And he does like deliverances on people who have demons. So it was very interesting. And he told me he was like I wanted to interview him, so he contacted me, and then he told me, he's also, why do you want to make a movie about this hat guy, this shadow man? And I told him, I said, well, I think it's important to talk about this topic, and I think it's a good idea for a documentary, blah blah blah. And he started telling me all, like, I guess you'd call them HATMAN secrets or whatever. And he's all like, what? He's all, I know exactly what this guy is. He's all, I had a contract with him. He's all, I know its name. He's all, I know its ranking in the spirit realm. And he started telling me all these things. I'm like, what the heck? And then he's all like, phase 1. He's all, if you piss me off, if I was working and you pissed me off, He's like, that's the first thing I sent to your house. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And then I kind of knew this already, but hearing it from somebody is different. You know what I mean? Like, from a personal person, whatever.
Yeah, it's in your face.
Yeah. And he's all, phase one, he's all, I'm going to send it to your house, and it's going to be in the doorway, and it's going to be pitch black with the hat on, the coat, and he's all, and it's going to terrify you like you're going to have a heart attack. And I was like, oh, wow. And then he's all, and then if that doesn't work, he's all, I'll do some more magic at home. He's all, like, he'll cut a chicken's head off and all the Santeria stuff. And he's all, then I'll send it to your house again. And he's all, in phase two, it's either going to be at the foot of your bed or like what you said right now, in front of your face, but with red eyes. And he's all, and then it's going to give you even a worse feeling like you're about to die. And he's all, it's meant to scare the hell out of you so that way you don't mess with me again. Something like that, he said. And then I told him, I said, okay, that's interesting. I'm like, so why the hat though? Like, why? Because he said he had a relationship with it, like it was his family member. And then I'm like, why the hat? And he said, well, the hat is the form it chooses to take in the spirit realm to show its authority over the other demons. That's what he said.
Well, now that's what me and Rosemary both thought of, is that dad hat, that authority hat. And yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah, and I remember I listened to an old interview with Rosemary, and she said that, and she mentioned a connection to Saturn or something. And I know Saturn's associated with Satan sometimes, so I thought that was...
Well, on YouTube. Very much so. But yeah, Saturn is the restrictor, and Saturn, the god, ate his children. It's a whole big story. But Saturn teaches through restriction. And you could say that the dominion of the HATMAN is definitely a teaching through restriction, if there's any purpose for it whatsoever, than to just scare the crap out of us and make us grow, you know. Mm-hmm. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
He's the ultimate fertilizer.
Oh, I found the connection interesting with like how it chooses to take different forms, but that's the form that it likes most to terrify people is the hat and coat. And I thought there was a strong connection with the Stephen King's It and Pennywise, how his favorite form was to take a clown. And they called it... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Pennywise and Stephen King's New It, which is coming out soon. I mean, it's like all of these things are paralleling each other, and I agree. I think your HATMAN and the clown Pennywise, they reminded me of each other.
Sometimes I wonder if it might even be the same entity, or maybe, I don't know. I feel like there's a connection there. But I did, yeah, I actually went to go watch the new It movie, but it did feel kind of potent on some parts, which was kind of weird. Spiritually, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's as if you asked the higher will of God to help you with this, and congratulations, but most of them are going right into the darkness and tapping that at its source instead of asking a higher power to help with it.
Oh. I think either way they're kind of fun to watch, but that might be true, yeah. That's pretty
I agree. I mean, any way to expose the darkness is a good way, even if you're going straight to the main vein. And it's interesting that he was talking about hierarchy. He was talking about rank. And he also believed that the contract he had with his shadow person was a family member. And that's what I've always seen when I'm working with other victims of these events, that we do find there's an ancestor who is still haunting the family.
That's interesting.
And it's an ancestor who has chosen the darkness, and that's the issue. That's why they're still there, basically. This could be an ancestor back from Rome, for all you know. And I think that we should do more work on this. As a psychic, I can take people beyond their subconscious into the superconscious, where we can find out these answers. But believe me, I have very few willing volunteers. Yeah,
because it goes into some dark areas of the mind there. Or the spirit mind, I guess. Like, my theory, to be honest, my theory of the HATMAN is that it's a fourth dimensional or interdimensional entity that has projected... I just want to ask, what's your theory on what you think the HATMAN is? Because I know we talked about it, but I can't include everything in the film, you know what I mean? And I know we talked about it, I just don't remember.
I really felt the HATMAN, when I saw him and had my own experience, he was on somebody else, and he was on watching someone else. So I got to see him unobserved by him, and I got to study it for, as long as I could sit there and stand it. And I knew that the Hat Man knew this man. He was not there to haunt or even understand anyone else in our ayahuasca circle. So I was on a strong dose of DMT, but I'm already psychic, so I wasn't too far gone. This is what I'm kind of used to, having these different states of consciousness. And that night, we were in a realm that was really dark. It's like everyone was dreaming of ghosts that night. We were in what we call the bardo in Buddhism, or the hungry ghost realm. And I have a lot of knowledge as a shaman of what's going on during some of these ayahuasca circles, which is where the dead are reclaiming their bloodlines, and they're reclaiming their dominion over the bloodlines. Because doing a powerful... So you were talking about shutting down the pineal and restarting the pineal via the Hat Man. Well, this Hat Man was definitely connected to the family member, I would say, that he was over. And there was a conversation going on there. I could tell there was communication going on there. And more than that, it was like programming. It was like MK Ultra programming, mind control.
That makes complete sense. Because throughout making the film, too, I'm pretty sure, no, I'm positive, I got attacked mentally with probably those type of messages. But his was probably more, maybe he was getting more visions and stuff. Mine was more harassment.
You were intuitively guided to do the right thing and follow the light into the darkness. And that is so rare, and congratulations, and I'm just really proud of you, Kyle.
Thank you. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It takes guts. It takes guts.
And it's something that we don't have so much anymore in this Instagram culture. But you found some heroes, and you put them on film, and I really felt close to all the experiencers in the film. And I did want to ask you, has anyone caught the Hat Man on camera? I saw some examples, but I want you to go into this.
Yeah, it was strange. One eyewitness that contacted me when I first started the film, she was telling me she kept seeing the Hat Man, but he would have these reptilian-like eyes and a huge, sharp teeth grin. And I was like, I've heard of this before in my research, but it's very rare. It's like maybe if I could do it 1 through 10, maybe 2 out of 10 people see him with that face and eyes, you know? And she started sending me pictures that she caught his face on camera. And I'm like, what the heck? And then this was late at night, too. And then I was looking at the pictures, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, to me, I believed her, the way she was telling her story, the consistencies, the commonalities. And then she sent me these pictures, and I'm like, oh. And one of them, it looked like he's, like, in the corner, and you could see, like, a grin on his face, but it's kind of blurry. And she was saying that these pictures would just show up on her phone, and she would look at the time, and that's the time she was asleep, and it would be like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I did set the intention, I guess you would say in the spirit realm, to kind of attract those photographs to me so I can put them in the film. Because I was like, okay, I know this is really hard to get stuff on camera. I believe people can get different entities on camera, but I know it's very hard.
Shadow people especially, we can get orbs fairly easily.
Orbs very easy. Shadow people, that's very hard. And then I started getting, every now and then, maybe every 3 months, I would get someone submitting a photograph of what they think they caught the Hat Man. And then I wouldn't just take them by face value. I would look at them, I'd put them in my editor. I would edit them a little bit to check them out to see if it's been altered or not. And then I would do a long interview, hour or 2-hour interview of the person. And the ones I put in the film are the ones that I believe to be real pictures of the Hat Man.
And I really like how you did in the film. You took it into your graphics program. We're right there with you. We're watching you do it. And you changed the coloring so that we can see more clearly what's being pointed out in the picture. And so I found that really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, because, I know what you're talking about. Like, I watched some other things, and I'm like, wait, I can't see what it is, so I have to see an outline of it, you know? The pictures I chose, if they had some type of vibe to it, those are the ones that I put in the film. Because some of them, I saw some, I'm like, I think these might be fake, and then other ones, I was like, no, these ones I believe are real, and those are the ones that made the cut.
Because you could feel it. It's almost like a musical note, isn't it? Like a tone.
Yeah, I also I also did that in the film too. So I guess you could say I kind of edited the film with your subconscious in mind, if that makes sense. So
Definitely.
I purposely put in tones and low, not really, there's low bass in there, but it's more like low rumbles and similar to binaural beats to kind of get you in the psyche of what's going on. You know what I mean? Like kind of like what you say, kind of putting you in that zone.
Well, you definitely hijacked my consciousness.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's a trip you can't not go on. Once you push play, you strap yourself in because you're going to be there. You're not going to get up for popcorn. You're not going to go potty. You're going to be glued to your screen. And that's why part of the reason I'm so proud is that you really do grab us and take us in with you and say, let's have an adventure together. Whew. It is a roller coaster. So okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
you.
sorry. You go. I'm just curious, what parts or scenes were the most potent to you? Because I've been asking all the eyewitnesses, my family, the people who I've seen the film, what parts are the most potent to you where you're like, oh, I don't even want to look at it, or you just felt creeped out by it?
Well, probably as a mother, I would say the screaming baby with the HATMAN really drove it all home for me, because that baby is every human. You know, I didn't just see it as the innocent child, one person's innocent child. I saw it as humanity crying out against the shadow.
Oh, wow, I like that. That's very strong. I like that. That sounds so accurate too. That's really cool. Wow. I never looked at it that way.
That baby was screaming for all of us, most definitely.
Oh, wow.
And there's nothing more primordial than a mother and her child and trying to protect her child. All nature knows this. You don't have to be a human to know it. So the Earth Mother herself knows this.
Oh, wow. So basically, the HATMAN's tapping into, that's probably one of the most evil things you can do then, right? Because that's like the opposite of humanity.
Exactly, and I do believe that I've discovered that, and I'm not the only one, evil in general its goal is to kill all life. That's the point of evil. It strangles you until you get stronger and overcome it, or it strangles you until you become it.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. Yep. Mhm.
I know you have a very strong spiritual spine, and you had to get through this and not become twisted and demented, actually.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. There was a lot of I guess you could say HATMAN manifestations, just like in the film, that have happened since making the film. Not to me though, but to the people around me, or maybe I was there, but I didn't see him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, do you want me to go in detail with that?
Oh, please do.
There was one incident where it was me and my parents were going to the beach to a jet show. I believe it was Long Beach in California, and we're driving there. I get a message from a well-known paranormal investigator. I can't say his name, though, because he was part of the film. It was through Instagram, and I looked at it, and then as I'm looking down at my phone, I hear my mom go, "Oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you see that?" And we're still driving on our way there, so we're in the car still. And I'm like, "What? What?" And she's like, "There was a man. There was a man on the on the bench, on the bus bench." And she's all, he was wearing all black. He had a wide brim hat. And then my dad's all, yeah. I saw him on the corner of my eye, but I didn't look. I don't know why I didn't look, because Kyle's making a movie about that type of thing. Why didn't I look? And then my mom's all, she's all, I was looking at him, and he looked straight up at me, and he was looking right at me. And she's all, he had a pale white face, wide brim hat, and then but he had more of a suit this time, and like a white shirt, almost like a what are those people in Middle America that they don't have electricity? What's that called?
Middle America, that's where you threw me off. Amish?
Yeah, Amish. Yeah. He said it looked kind of like an Amish hat. And then I looked up, but I looked at the opposite side of the car where he was on the other side of the street, so I didn't see him. But I would have saw him if that paranormal investigator didn't text me.
That's amazing. Do you remember what the text was?
Yeah, it was regarding I wanted to interview him for the film. He's seen the HATMAN as well, with the face.
Wow.
And then recently, like maybe 5 months ago, my sister was driving to work early in the morning, I'm sorry, driving to the gym early in the morning, maybe around 4, so it's still kind of dark outside. And then she put on the music on her phone. Her phone's connected to the car, so she's putting on music. And then she looked up, she's driving, she's fine. She looks down and she's changing the music. She looks back up. The Hat Man is in the middle of the road, about like 7 feet tall, wide brim hat, long jacket. This time she said he was all in shadow, but like a bluish hue to him.
I know the blue hue. I really do. Wow.
And then she said she swerved, like she thought she was going to hit somebody. She swerved around him and kept driving. And when she looked back, he was still. Oh no, she looked in her rear view mirror and he was still there. He was still standing there. And she didn't tell me about this story like till 2 weeks after. And I'm like. And I told her, I'm like, that was the Hat Man. I'm pretty sure. It wasn't a normal person. Because I said, how tall was he? And she was like, he was tall. And I showed her like a height. I put up my hand and like this tall. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, it's like almost 7 feet tall.
And it's also interesting that you mentioned your mother's spiritual line and that it might go back through her. So do you understand like an older religion through your family line?
I mostly associate with Messianic Judaism. So I do believe in Yeshua, like Christ, but I'm also Jewish as my roots, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, I'm wondering about your mother's bloodline.
Yeah, that's where the bloodline would go toward.
Great.
Mostly Judaism and the Jewish blood.
Well, that's definitely ancient, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
And then the Dubek was mentioned in the film, correct?
Oh, like a Dybbuk?
Dybbuk, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, that was Steve Giles' interpretation on it. He's a paranormal investigator, and he was talking about, on the Jewish, they call demons Dybbuks. Or, like the Muslims, they call them jinn. But I do think that the Muslim religion, I think they do have more information on the shadow people that they call jinn. I think they have more of an insight. That makes sense?
I would agree. I've tried to do my research, but it is definitely not in English, so it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So there's some in art, but again, it's not in English. And there's so many different languages, older cultures that understand this so much better than we do. Even in Ireland, they know the old hag. If you show up at a pub and you said, I had the old hag last night, they'll all feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
But America is new, and we don't have all of these folk tales that are ancient. But we're getting them, obviously, through films like yours. And so when children tell their parents, I saw a Hat Man and it is causing me post-traumatic stress disorder, we now have a film that they can show their parents. And we have a film that we can share with our friends who have gone through these experiences as well. So just having a conversation out there is starting the healing, Kyle.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned one of the commonalities I came across with the whole Hat Man phenomena is just by saying its name, which is not really its real name, it's more of like the projected name it wants people to hear, the Hat Man, it almost as if it peeks up its ears or something, or like it's listening. It's almost as if you get his attention. That's one of the commonalities I got. So even if you're mentioning it in a public place, you'll notice that strange things starts happening just talking about it. At least that's what it was for me. And it seems as if this entity, interdimensional, has attached itself to the image of a hat and coat to come off as an intruder, but also to project it to the mass consciousness so that it's easier to manifest. That's what it seems like. It's almost as if the image itself and the name is its own sigil.
It's a brand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I find so interesting, because I know it's strange to look at it this way, but marketing and branding of shadow people in the Hat Man is happening. And we can put it into those marketing kind of categories.
That's perfect. It's like its own PR. They have their own PR, and they're marketing it all over the place. That is perfect. That's true.
And very, very strange. And that's why it seems so out of reality for me. But reality isn't what it used to be, is it, Kyle?
No. And it's also interesting that, like in the film, one of the eyewitnesses, she mentions that the neighborhood watch signs that everyone has in their neighborhoods. She's all, he kind of looks like that. And she's all, I think what the HATMAN is doing is trying to take on the form of what people are subconsciously afraid of. And she said, like intruders.
Yeah, that really struck me. That was one of those chill points. And when I picked up the whole Men in Black and just that they're watching you, and it chilled me. It gave me chills all over. It still freaks me out, obviously, just because I could tell she was sincere. I could look in her eyes, and I could feel her emotions, and I could be with her. And just looking at the sign itself of the neighborhood watch was, that thing's creepy in and of itself.
It is. I remember, and then I'm also, if I'm driving either to work or to any destination, I also happen to look at I don't know why, I so happen to look, and there's that sign. It's the neighborhood watch sign with that little hat guy on it. And it's like, I'm like, why did I look over there? A lot of stuff like that happens. But I do know what's going on. I think sometimes either something nearby or something whispering to me is probably telling me to look that way, to probably either try to scare me, intimidate me, or something. I don't know.
It is a bully. When you say it's a stalker, it's a predator, and it's a bully.
Yeah. I would even say too that it's a parasite. If you were to imagine God in all His infinite wisdom and all consciousness and all authority, right? These things would be considered like bugs and parasites and fleas. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think the HATMAN is. Or another theory I have is that the HATMAN is almost like a land shark. When he shows up with the teeth and the black eyes, it's almost like a land shark.
It's very intimidating, and again, you go back to the primordial feelings of no logic. Because if you see a big mouth of teeth, that says fight or flight. Again, like all of his symbols are fight-flight symbols. So to put us into that state, that heightened state of awareness, to get our blood pumping, and to get our endorphins running, and possibly to siphon off what we term chemicals. It's really energy, but right now we call it chemicals in the brain.
Yeah.
And that's what the Buddhists would say, because they have no light of their own. They're predatory upon ours.
Fascinating. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
So I keep going back in my mind to the man who spoke, that you didn't get to you interviewed him, but you didn't get to put him in the film, where he was talking about rank and hierarchy, and the different outfits, the different fashion can also be like the different rank of the so-called demon or entity of the fourth dimension. I keep going back there because I was actually attacked by a literal demon once. And only once. I had sleep paralysis for, the shadow man for 19 years. And then I had sleep paralysis well into almost 40 years old. But what I am sharing is one of the last attacks that I had is when I was laying next to a friend and we'd fallen asleep. Out of that friend came a black charred demon. And it was like a skeleton. So trigger warning, everyone. If you don't want to hear this, please move on. It jumped on my chest. And like I said, it was glittery. And it was charred, like it had been burnt. And that's why the glitter was there. And it was right on my chest. And it looked me right in the eyes. It had no eyes. But it, with the force of animation, it was looking me straight in the eyes. And by instinct alone, ancient instinct, my soul spoke and said, give me your name. And as some of us know, you have to ask the demon its name so it can't get you. And it gave me its name, and I'm going to say the name here. So again, fast forward. The name is Azazel. So the thing that attacked me all of those years was one of the highest ranking demons, as according to the biblical traditions. And having its name means that I control it. And that's what the Satanists have always told me, those who dabble in the dark arts. I never do, and I never have. I'm a very pure soul. However, those who know about these things tell me that I own it and that I could send it to people's places and I could get it to get things for me, which I think is, again, another form of slavery and isn't love or based on love. And if you have an evil thing, please don't use it. But that really grabbed me when you said that there was a hierarchy, and maybe it would give us a reason for who's in the clown realm, you know. Maybe that's a separate realm, and they're wearing the clown clothes there. And we've got an Ed Gacy was possibly possessed. He's a serial killer. He dressed as a clown and killed children, possibly possessed by one of these clown figures. And we've got Stephen King's It. And we understand that most writers are channeling from another dimension. They're not making this stuff up in their head. They're actually channeling it. And Stephen King's It has been a big deal, obviously, in our lifetime. And I think the HATMAN is going to be just as big as this comes around. So how do you feel that these things could actually make sense in a way that we can make sense of them as humans, as they have a hierarchy and they mirror our earth plane in what they're doing? And we could see, maybe we could overlay what I call the evil elites, you know, like the governments and the rich people who own everything, all 5 people who are making our lives difficult, that we could just mirror that right up onto these fourth dimensional beings and say, is there any difference spiritually between the darkness of our world that is political and governmental, having power over us? It's the same thing, possibly, as the fourth dimension having dominion over us in our sleep, in our waking dreams. What do you think about that? Could evil be all one?
I personally think that when I got into demonology and stuff, there was a lot of commonalities between alien abduction as well, and also interdimensional entity travel. And I really think that what everyone's talking about, whether you say aliens, ghosts, demons, shadow people, black-eyed children, the old hag, I really think that they have an agenda, and I think they're taking different forms to feed off people's adrenaline and energy to make themselves stronger to control people. But here's the thing too, is like I'm kind of reminded of out of all things, in Batman in the Dark Knight, he says there are some men that like they want money and fame and they want like power,
yeah.
And then there are other men that just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
I think it's like that in the dark realm as well, is that there are some entities that they have an agenda and they want to carry out that agenda, and then there's other lower entities that want to just watch people burn, want to watch people suffer.
Wow, I think that's really intense and true. Honestly, I feel it. It's amazing. And I believe that the dimensions are merging. It's taking its sweet time, but I believe the fourth dimension is coming to Earth, and it's coming through these ways of exposing evil and getting a conversation going about it. Because the more we talk about it, mister, the more it's going to happen, as you know.
When I did my research on the I guess you can call it the dark side, I've noticed that if you want to keep bringing God into the equation, I think you have to sometimes, or all the time. But he said it's interesting. Like in the Old Testament, he's the one that sent a demon to Saul, one of the kings back then. It said that, and God sent an evil spirit to Saul. And I thought that was interesting. So I think what happens, like you were talking about earlier, how sometimes you have to go through the darkness to get to the light side. Mm-hmm. Maybe some people can look at this as a possibility when they're experiencing these negative entities. Maybe look at this as a possibility of expanding your awareness and consciousness to more of, let it lead you toward the truth, and where am I living at, and why am I living here? Why do I exist? What is this simulation? What is this place? What is this thing? You know, look at it as a positive experience, because what the entity is trying to drive you down, you can, like what we talked about, you can alchemize it to something better. You see what I mean?
I totally agree. The whole reason, well, one of the reasons why I was so spiritual as a child, as a tiny little girl, totally in love with God is because I had the demon at night, and that will push you towards God like nothing else, or at least it did me.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of a weird line to cross, because I do believe that God doesn't want those things near human beings or even a child like you were when you were younger. But I also think there is another side where this might be necessary to push you forward, just like any other test would be, you know? But
I would
think
agree.
It's situational though too, I think sometimes, because I think some entities are not supposed to be there at all, like a haunting or something, you know?
Yes, but I do believe Earth is a school, so whatever happens here is going to grow you into a stronger being.
Yeah, yes.
And I also believe in spiritual warfare, and I think you kind of brought that up a little bit. At least there was a taste of it in the film. And spiritual warfare usually comes from Christian terms, but I've been fighting it my whole life, fighting the darkness with light. And the word guru, or the title, guru, G-U-R-U, means from darkness to light, and it's one of the oldest teachings we have on the planet.
Really? That's interesting. Oh, okay. Because there's some books that are called Darkness to Light. So it's almost like they're putting guru on the title.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So was there someone in your film crew or someone you were working with that had experiences during this time that was maybe a skeptic or, wasn't really into it in the first place?
It's cool because a lot of people in the film, like, I'm going to name drop a little bit, Alan Maxon, Sierra Hurman, they currently work in Hollywood. And also a couple of the makeup artists, they worked on big budget horror films. So it was an honor having them on the crew on a small budget film to recreate these experiences. A lot of them were more open-minded than you would think. Like, I would tell them the stories and they're like, oh, and they're more creeped out. And some of them say, yeah, I don't know if I believe, but I think there's something to it. And then slowly and surely they kind of build that, not really belief, but kind of the possibility. Instead of shutting it out completely, they build more of a possibility to it, which was interesting. There was an incident where there's a scene in the film where the eyewitness says she sees the HATMAN at the foot of the bed, right? So we were shooting that scene one day, and then in between takes, the actress said that she's all, what was weird that happened? I was sitting on my bed on my phone, and then I looked up, and behind my curtains, she has white curtains, and they're a little bit see-through. She saw it looked like a HATMAN behind the curtain. And she said she was just staring at it like, what the hell? Like, she got kind of scared. And so she got up, and she moved the curtains, and it was just the way the light was hitting the shadow. It was like a shadow trick thing. And she was like, that was strange. And I was looking at her like, I don't know, that might have been a setup, or that might have been him behind it in some form. It might have been either like she was meant to look that way, or it might have been that entity or some type of trick, But she was freaked out. She was like, yeah, I don't know, but it was weird. And then another time we were shooting the scene where the baby's crying and the HATMAN's next to the crib.
Yeah.
While we were shooting that, the owner of the apartment came in and said, hey, you know what? There's a whole bunch of cops outside, and we just got a call, or they just got a call that the guy next door, literally one room over, he said he's going to kill himself.
Oh, my God.
He's all, I'm going to kill myself. He called his family saying, I'm going to kill myself tonight. So the cops came, and they were going to try to stop him because they didn't know how he was going to kill himself. We had to stop the shoot.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, was the most powerful scene, and there was actually something happening behind the wall that was a very powerful scene as well. And that's a build-up. And, if we just see it as energy, only as energy, take the people out of it and everything, you were in a vortex.
I could see that happening. It was, I didn't think it was a coincidence at all. And then I made the choice to reschedule the shoot, and we just got the hell out of there because I didn't know if he had a gun or he's gonna go crazy or something, I don't know if the gun's gonna go through the wall and shoot one of my crew members. That'd be horrible,
What an intense situation.
Mm-hmm. It was very intense. Like, talking about it now, it's like, doesn't seem like that much, but in the situation, everyone was kind of shaking and scared because there was like a whole bunch of cops outside, and yeah, it was pretty freaky.
Well, cops bring a mood with them anyway, if you know what I mean. That feeling is very much like the Shadow Man.
Oh, how funny.
And so you had all that adrenaline going on, and you had somebody who was severely depressed, obviously, that could, I don't believe in just mental illnesses. I think they're caused by entities, honestly. Wow. I would say that was a good decision for you to move on from shooting that day. And wow.
I actually mentioned that to Rosemary, and she told me that she said she believes that there was a nearby entity that was attracted to our filmmaking of that scene, and she said it was trying to take advantage or something. She said it was like a trickster, maybe.
That's a perfect storm, and I agree with Rosemary, definitely.
Yeah, it was strange. Basically, throughout the making of the film, there was a lot of synchronicities as well. So, like, seeing 666 on license plates, 333 all over the place, 444. Also, a lot of, like, one weird thing that happened that was one of the most weirdest things. Me and my family were on our way to my mom's friend's house, and she's all, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, what? And she's like, "Oh my gosh." And my dad's all, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "What?" And I kept looking around like, is there a car about to hit us or something? And then she said, that license plate just said HATMAN on it.
Oh my gosh.
And she's all, "It says HATMAN." And then we tried to speed up and look at it, and she's all, "I kid you not, Kyle." She's all, "It was clear as day." She's all, "It said HATMAN on it."
Wow. Is your mom okay? Because it certainly seems like she's had a lot of phenomenon.
Well, that was one of the things that jump-started me into studying the paranormal. Was our house used to be haunted, and she was the one that would see all these demon things all over the house.
So I want to know, this is for my own curiosity, the Sandy Man, G. Macias, that you put into the film obviously reminded me of the Sandman, which is Morpheus in the Greek, the god of the dream realm, which is obviously what we've been talking about this whole time, is when the subconscious or the superconscious dream realm is impending upon our physical reality, much like in the Nightmare on Elm Street series where flesh meets fiction. So I was caught with that image of the Sandy Man, G. Macias. Could you tell us more about how you came across that and how it made you feel?
I just know I came across the wine connection with the HATMAN. There's also another wine or drink that's called Don Julio, and that one also has a HATMAN figure on it. And then I came across this Sandman wine, and I was like, whoa, that looks like almost completely accurate to what most people see the HATMAN as. And then I was like, what is this? I just typed in the Sandman wine documentary, and then it popped up, and I was like, what is this? I'm like, they have the HATMAN's image on it, and I was watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this thing has been putting its image since the 60s or 50s.
Yeah, and it's been imprinting on our psyche, and also old FBI agents, 1940s, they brought that up in the film as well, that all of these figures seem intimidating. And I even think of Zorro sometimes, obviously.
Mm-hmm. That's the big one, Zorro, yeah. Even a little bit of Indiana Jones. If you ever watch Indiana Jones, they always have a shot kind of where it's just his shadow first, and then they show Indy. That's also interesting.
Yeah, and mob films, and even like Dick Tracy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's imprinted in our psyche. And Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, would say these are obviously symbols. These are our symbology of our world, and it's always been here. But this isn't an ancient Greek myth, right? This is a myth of the now.
Yeah, and I think that's what's disturbing people too. Is they're like, I think they subconsciously know he's real, because anytime I bring him up in conversation or the information on shadow people, they kind of their reaction is like they kind of know, but their front part doesn't know, if that makes sense. The back of their mind, they know this stuff is real, but the front of their mind, they can't comprehend it. They have to be like awakened first a little bit to even like comprehend what I'm talking about.
You really said a mouthful there. Like their everyday waking personality is really in denial, honestly, because when you hear the truth, I believe this, when you hear the truth, there's a vibration of truth, and you just know it's real. That's it. And then we have the logical mind that's saying, that doesn't fit in my paradigm, and the logical mind fights against it, and that's when we get headaches.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's exactly what happens even if I'm talking about a totally different subject, even something nicer and heavenly, that's the same reaction. But something about the shadow people and the HATMAN is more, I don't want to say potent, but more like more of a warning vibration to them, I guess. More of like, you better heed what I'm telling you here, if that makes sense.
It is. It's almost like Illuminati is talking to you. It's like some deep knowledge. You could talk about Bigfoot all day. You could make 10 movies about Bigfoot and never feel anything.
Oh, that's a great point. I never thought about that. That's a really great point.
Exactly.
Wow. Wow.
Because this has its own essence. I mean, I'd been suffering since I was a little girl, and I had no logic when I was a child, so I just knew that that's what it was. And my mother believed me because it happened to her, again, generational. And if we didn't have someone in our family that was supporting us in this, we probably would have gone completely mad, because it's a traumatizing experience, and it's like sending a little girl off to war to kill people. I mean, that's how bad the experience is. And it does traumatize, especially when you're young and you're fresh, and you're obviously introduced to evil at a young age, but also good at the same time. And I'd like to get more into that just a little bit here before we wrap up. I do have a spirit guide who talks to me, Hermes Trismegistus, and we've been in contact for 20 years. And he is a light. He's a brilliant light. He's always been honest. I've never caught him in a lie, and 20 years is a long time. So there's an intrinsic trust going on here. And I see him above the fourth dimension. When I do meet with him in my consciousness, we're in a higher, beautiful, space-like realm, or at Olympus. So did you get any nice voices or nice dreams or encouragement along this path of the HATMAN? Was there anything positive and light about it?
I definitely had my inner wisdom taught to me a lot, and my knowing. But I also had what we call Raha Kodesh. It's like saying the Holy Spirit, but in Hebrew.
That's beautiful.
And that one definitely really helped me, but it was more of like, I'm going to stand back a little bit, let you experience some garbage, and that's what's going to escalate you to the next level, but I'm also going to help you throughout, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Wow. That's so deep. How old are you, Kyle? You're like 12.
I'm about to turn 26 in a couple weeks.
Oh, happy birthday. You should definitely have a very big HATMAN birthday and be very proud of yourself. Wow, 26. The future is so bright, you'll have to wear shades.
You know what's interesting, too, that you bring that up, is that some people see the HATMAN with sunglasses on.
Oh, my goodness. There's more accoutrements. Pretty soon he's going to be walking down the runway.
I know. That's one of them. She drew him, and he had circle sunglasses on, and I was telling her, like, that might have been more of a Men in Black type encounter. And then she's all like, really? I don't know the difference. And I told her, and then she's all like, oh, I don't know. But the more I looked at her drawing, I got more of the vibe that it was the HATMAN, like, or at least that entity, if that makes sense. I keep saying if that makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Well, I understand if that makes sense, because we are actually programmed to do that because of the sheep herders keeping the sheep in line, and I'm definitely not a sheep herder. I'm going to let you right out of the line and say whatever you need to say, because honesty is the way. And I also wanted to ask you, for our audience who is suffering from these terrors, did you learn anything in this journey of yours of how to combat the Shadow Man and the HATMAN and the Grinning Man, the Thin Man, and the Tall Man?
For me personally, throughout making the film, it was important for me to bless my room, if you want to call it that.
Tell me how you went about doing that, sweetheart.
I actually got what you would call anointing oil. So it was actually oil from Israel. I would actually do the sign of the cross, but over the doorways, almost like, you know, when the Jews, they put the blood around the doorposts so the angel of death would pass by. So basically that's what I did, but with anointing oil from Israel on all my doorways and all that stuff. That kind of kicks things out of the house, or my atmosphere.
It. Yeah.
But more in post-production, where I'm editing the film. So I had to bless my computer, but as you know, and a lot of people probably know, they could affect electronics pretty effectively. So that they were trying to basically frustrate me from either not finishing the project or making it look subpar, so I had to really push harder than I would usually do to kind of get this film done. Because actually a lot of the scenes in there, I'm glad you liked them and other people are giving me good feedback, but my opinion is they probably could have been like maybe 70, maybe even 100% even hyped up even to the next level if there wasn't so much pushback from.
Well, I think that's really neat that you actually took it serious from the beginning, understood it as a spiritual problem, and protected yourself with it. And Rosemary also gives some advice on psychic self-defense and how to research that in the film. And in fact, the film is, I think, for researchers, because I took notes, and every few minutes I had to write something down because it was something else to go look up, and it was new to me. And nothing's new to me anymore, mister, so it was very interesting, because the film is a seed pod. It's full of seeds, and then all those seeds grow separately, if I'm making sense in my gardening terms here. And so many things will grow out of this film, and I want to thank you for all the screaming children, and I was one of them, and I want to thank you for making this film, and thank you for putting me in it. I appreciate it, and my audience appreciates your time and energy being here today with us. And I just want to give you my love and their love as well, because I know when you get down in the darkness like this, you can start feeling like a creep yourself, because it's such a horrible topic, and it's like being inside of brimstone. And thanks for climbing out and cleaning yourself off and giving us such a beautiful, meaningful product.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I very much appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what I set out to do. So yeah, I completely appreciate that.
Is there anything you'd like to communicate to my audience today?
Yeah, just keep on pursuing truth, and you'll eventually get to the ultimate truth, is what I would say.
That's beautiful. And what is in your future? Do you see any projects coming up for you, and where can we find you?
They can use the documentary email, and that's going to be hatmandocumentary@outlook.com, or they can find me on Facebook. Personally, it's just Kyle J, J-A-Y. I'm going to just see how the documentary goes, but I am going to do a short film similar to the HATMAN type phenomena, but it's going to be like a narrative short film.
Oh, that's wonderful. I want to thank everyone for joining us in the chat today. And below you will find all the links to the film and to our friend Kyle. As YouTube, Vimeo, and other venues grow and we share our stories, we will all get to the truth together while we're holding hands. We're putting light into the darkness. Blessings and namaste.